Hello everybody and welcome to another video. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the new Ascended gear that's been added to the game, because I did a video like this before and even though I just kind of stood about rambling for a bit, people seem to quite like it, so I thought I'd do another one. I don't really want to get caught into the trap of just covering all of the basic stuff that's come out with updates that we can easily read on wikis and things, but I think that there are quite a few references again to some of the new gear they've added to the game that some people might have missed. People who didn't play the first game definitely will have missed some of this stuff, and I kind of wanted to share what some of those important little things are. So if you've not been keeping up with the game as well, this could be a nice little reason to tell you guys what's been going on. There's been another big update, just like there was last month. ArenaNet really have stuck to their one-a-month big update schedule, which is very cool. The main thing that you're going to notice now is you can choose what dailies you want to do. So you only have to complete 5 a day, but you can pick any that you want. So here you can see I've done most of them, but not all. I haven't done all of my daily events for today, and I haven't been to World vs. World, but I have got all of these others, and you can choose exactly what you want to appear on the top right now, which is really awesome. A bit beside the point of this video, but very cool. And in fact, you can even do that for any achievement at all. So this like hellish achievement here, Thirst Slayer, if you really wanted to go for that, you could then like just play the rest of your time playing this game with Thirst Slayer up there and hope that it goes somewhere. For some reason it says 0%, even though it's clearly not a 0%. I'm not sure what's going on there. This is just like a horrible title. I'm not sure why it's even in the game. I think it might be left over from when potions were a really big bit of the game, but now potions I don't even think affect this, you know, like the maintenance types of consumables, so really weird. But anyway, I'm talking myself off the topic. So they added that, was one main thing, but the other big thing that they've added are guild missions. Most people generally agree that it's too difficult to access guild missions at the moment because, for example, with my guild, hope they don't mind. With my guild, as you can see here, it costs a hell of a lot to buy access to the guild missions. So like 50,000 for guild treks, and you need a bunch of merits as well. A couple of new currencies have been added. Basically though, once you get the access to these guild missions and you start completing them, you'll get a new type of currency called Commendations. And the Commendations can be used to trade with this guy, the Tyrian Explorer. Old Red. Sadly, unlike the Laurel vendors, they only added this guy into Lion's Arch, which sucks, because I really applauded ArenaNet for putting Laurel vendors in all of the main races. It would have been nice to actually film this video in a fairly unique area that you don't see often, but no, we have to be in Lion's Arch again. This is the only guy that you can trade your commendations to, and you'll notice here are the commendations. You can buy new stuff, but you have to combine that with gold as well. So for example, if we wanted an Endless Guild banner tonic, which I believe just turns you literally into your guild's banner, if we really wanted this, it would cost us both 20 gold and commendations. I haven't heard anybody bitch about that, but it probably is a good thing that these are costing money as well as commendations, because inflation is getting ridiculous. So I think it's probably smart that they have added this extra cost on there, but regardless. You can see now there's another way for us to buy these gear boxes. Just complete 2 guild missions basically, 10 silver and you can get these. The rates on what these things drop as well has been improved apparently, which is good because everyone was saying they were basically worthless. And there was just some crazy stuff going on with these gear. Did you guys notice that the Ranger box was dropping rifles? Like, why was that even happening? That just sounds like something like a dev just made a mistake and thought, oh, Rangers must be able to use rifles, and put it in the loot table, and now it's been taken out. So, yeah, some crazy stuff was going on there, but I think they're probably more valuable and maybe worthwhile getting. But there's some other interesting stuff here too. Couple more minis have been added to the game, as I say, the Endless Guild banner tonic, which I'm sure is awesome, and also a letter of commendation, so you can trade this new currency, guild commendations, in to get a consumable commendation, which will then give your guild influence, which is just crazy. So you can do that as well. One thing I will say on the price of the guild missions, I think it is good now that actually influence has a purpose, because if they just made it cost barely anything, the system would have just been defunct. Now it does ruin small guilds, and I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I also think a lot of the problems are alleviated owing to the fact that people can be in multiple guilds at once here. So you can be in multiple guilds in Guild Wars 2. I feel like maybe you can just be in a big guild, and if you want to have a small guild with just your friends, you can be in there at the same time. So it doesn't bother me that much, but I can understand the concerns, and maybe ArenaNet will change it. We don't know. Anyway, this wasn't meant to be about guild missions, but that is one big bit of the update, so I thought I'd add it in. This is an interesting consumable you can now buy. The Summon Guild Vaults, a bit like having access to your bank anywhere you want, except for the fact it's not really your bank. But if you own your own guild, and you're the only person with permissions to withdraw stuff out of that, you basically get a second bank, if you really think about it. And you can just use this one guild mission, and you get access to the bank wherever you want. If this is like other consumables, you can probably activate this from when you're on the floor too. Which will, I don't know, for me, whenever I'm like desperate for a revive orb or something and I don't have one in my inventory, I always find myself going to the Black Lion store and then having to spend gems, which is a massive waste of money. This could save you for that, so that one looks kind of interesting too. And we got some other stuff here. You can get the armor station or the weapon station wherever you want, which just seems a bit pointless to me. But anyway, banners, just like would otherwise only be accessible and activatable through influence on your guild panels, you can now get. But lower down, and there's new types of banners too as well, you can see here. There's some crazy ones as well. There's one that basically gives you everything, but only for a short while. We got some backpacks here, exotic backpacks. These weren't available before. If you remember the default merchant, the default guild guy, the armorer, you'll see here offered back items, but only uncommon or green and rare or yellow backpacks and nothing else. Well, now you can get the exotic version that you so desire, but of course it will cost you in the way of these commendations, and 5 gold as well, so they're not exactly cheap. But then we get to the exciting stuff, the what I wanted to do the video on. We get to the Ascended stuff. Again, we have a lot of juicy lore and cool stuff, and there's plenty of flavor text on these ones too. I'm not going to go down the whole list, just the really kind of significant ones to me. First of all, we've got Durmand Pen. I might go down the whole list, I don't know. The flavor text just said, it said that the pen is mightier. I don't know, is that hinting at something? I'm not sure. But anyway, Durmand was the guy that formed the Durmand Priory. You might not have ever thought about the name, where that name comes from. Durmand was a real guy that was alive. You can interact with him in Guild Wars 1. He gave you access to specific bonus missions that you could buy as microtransactions in Guild Wars 1. He was a really cool character. He was voice acted back then as well. And the idea was he got quite old and he actually founded the Priory, which is one of the older orders. You've got the Order of Whispers too, but they're like thousands of years old. And then you've got, oh, maybe thousands of years is a bit much, but the Order of Whispers are really old. And then you got this, the Durmand Priory was basically formed by a guy that you met 250 years ago. So it's pretty cool. And this was his pen, supposedly. Golden Rin relics, or Golden Relic of Rin. This has the same icon as an item we had in Guild Wars 1, pillaged long ago from the ruined city of Rin, it describes. This was a consumable, so in Eye of the North, when you ran certain dungeons, enemies would have very low chances of dropping certain items, and then they could be traded in for gear. Very similar to the dungeon token system used in Guild Wars 2, but it was a bit more unforgiving. And if you really wanted that armor, like a specific headpiece, for example, if you really wanted that, you'd have to run that dungeon a lot, and it would just be rolling the dice and hope that at some point during the run, you got one of those items. And this was one of those items. This was a Golden Rin relic that they were originally known as, and you could trade it in for, I believe it was like this scary mask thing. It was very cool, and in my entire time playing Guild Wars 1, I always saved these up for myself. I never particularly ran that dungeon too frequently, though it was very frequently ran by the community, and I was just hoping if in my entire career of playing Guild Wars 1, I would eventually have enough relics. I think you needed like 25 of them, and in the end I think I did get enough actually. If not, they're still sat in my Guild Wars 1 bank, and it's really kind of a nice blast from the past to see that icon now, which is very cool. We got the Moon Shell, a rare and beautiful shell from far off Istan, a reference to Nightfall. I've got a couple of comments as well when we get to Cantha references in a second. I do recognise the name of that. I think that might have been a shield in the first game. Consortium Charm, of course, during the Carcass stuff when that was all blown up, we learned about the Consortium. They've not seemed to do much since then, but yes, we've got a charm here. Guaranteed, asterisk, guaranteed, not legally binding, to protect against any of a multitude of threats and indignities. Of course. And then we've got Half Mad's mug, claimed to be the property of Brothander Half Mad, creator of Bear's Brown Ale, and the first Norn to bring the art of brewing to his people. Is this I think this is a guy you can meet in Wayfarer Foothills, I think. Let's get something busy going on the screen. I think you can meet him somewhere around here. Is this the place? I can't remember. No, that's where you save the people. Anyway, that's a reference to a Norn character in Guild Wars 2. Not too fascinating, that one. Scroll back down. Apple Seller's Lucky Cog. This will upset a few people maybe if you get the reference. Smooth from having constantly been toyed with. The initials TL are etched roughly into the metal. So this is a reference to a particular character. I won't spoil anything. A particular character in the Order of Whispers storyline. Probably, if you look at the community response, the most well-received character ArenaNet actually implemented into Guild Wars 2. I can only wonder if he had been Traherne, how people would react. But I think no matter what character it was, was anyone in Traherne's role, everyone would have been pissed off with. But anyway, this is a reference to that character, and quite a nice one too. The Mariner's Flask, said to have been the property of the legendary Cobia Mariner, founder of Lion's Arch. The third Guild Wars novel, yes, there's a third novel that's been in the works for a long time. I'm not sure what's going on with it, and honestly, I don't think there's been any news for a long time. Rhys Osby, one of the primary world builders for Guild Wars 2, like one of the main people out of 2 people to really design all of this universe, she had the task of writing the third book that we all assumed for a very long time would be coming out at the launch of Guild Wars 2. And that book was actually around the rise of Zhaitan and the original flooding of Lion's Arch, and possibly then too this character here as well. We heard small things about the book that I think at one point, wasn't it going to be like a collection of small stories as well around Lion's Arch, I think was once revealed. But we've heard nothing about the book for a very long time. I don't even know if it's due out, whether it's been canned or shelved or whatever. I've just literally got no idea, but this would be a character that was quite prominent there. Cobia Mariner, he's a Norn, I believe, that yeah, helped rebuild this whole place and helped all the kind of pirates come back in. Fearshots Arrowhead. By the way, on the topic of books as well, the third book wasn't always going to be written by Rhys Osby, and in fact, it was originally going to be called the Crucible of Eternity, yes, named after the dungeon, the particularly fascinating dungeon to do with the idea of a 6th Elder Dragon, which now the community calls Mordremoth. It was going to be entirely about this area of the world, or something to do with the building of this reactor or something, but eventually it got shelved, and we don't really know why, but the guy that was writing it in the end kind of pulled back from it and decided to write the next book, and its entire content was changed to about Lion's Arch. So that's quite interesting to me, and I wonder whether, because owing to the fact it's about this area of the world that seems to deal so much with this idea of a 6th dragon, I wonder whether the third book was originally penned to introduce us to the 6th dragon, but then the devs thought maybe that's a little bit too early, let's leave it as a mystery. We've hardly even told the community about, you know, the deep sea dragon yet. That's probably going a bit too fast, and then they turned it off. That's my own little speculation about why the book might have changed, but yeah, also a little bit trivia in case you didn't know. But yeah, okay, moving on. We've got Fearshots Arrowhead, said to belong to the legendary Char Archer Pyre Fearshot. This was a hero and a good friend and companion of yours in Guild Wars 1. In many ways, kind of, I guess, credited for starting, at least, the revolution between the rest of the Char and overthrowing the Flame Legion. And you can kind of track this guy's lineage as well. In a lot of ways, this character, Pyre Fearshots, his father, in a lot of ways, was probably the first Char many players of the Guild Wars franchise ever killed. The first Char that you have to fight, he's right at the end of the first mission. You could have done side quests and stuff before then, but yeah, Pyre Fearshot's father was kind of one of the first Char that you seriously interact with, and you end up kind of hanging out with him. And then even like one of his granddaughters or something was the leader of the female Char when they kind of came back to prominence, so interesting. Magister's Field Journal, a collection of clever, dreamy notes penned in a flowing hand. Not too interesting. Here, Althea's Ashes, though. Some of you veterans might recognise this. The legendary beauty who captured the heart of Prince Rurik only to perish in the searing of Ascalon. There was a quest in Guild Wars 1 where, very early on, where to complete the quest, all you had to do was hand in an item in the game called Althea's Ashes. And you could literally go from accepting the quest, as long as this item was in your inventory, you could accept the quest and then just cash in the reward straight away and get a nice chunk of experience. So very early on, like right at the start of Guild Wars 1, one of the earliest things people did to earn money was they would continuously run this quest and then abandon it right at the end so that they could fill up their inventory with loads of Althea's Ashes. And then they would sell these ashes to other players, new players that were coming along. So those new players would just give over a little bit of money and then they wouldn't have to complete this difficult quest at all for themselves, but they'd get the huge experience benefit. This was a big thing early on in Guild Wars 1. It was a way people started to earn money, one of probably the earliest, the most retro farm, if you can call it that, really, that existed for Guild Wars 1. Very early game. And lots of people did it for a long time. After a while, obviously, the games changed very much and getting the experience wasn't worth it anymore. But, yeah, a little bit of Guild Wars history there that, obviously, hasn't really got much to do with lore, but it's a very cool little fact. And it was nice to see Althea's Ashes back here. If any of you guys are playing that did that, you know, coming up on 10 years ago now, or maybe that's a bit of a push, but coming up a long time ago, this would be quite a nice, like, nostalgic thing to have in your inventory. Althea herself, I did the lore summary. I'm still doing the lore summary. And in the first part of it, the second part of it, I talked about Ascalon, and I really tried to push the angle of Althea herself as a character, because she's a really tragic character, and she, I think, probably had a big impact on Prince Rurik's life as well. I'm not going to go rambling on about Guild Wars 1 early Ascalon lore, but I think she's one of the most important and interesting characters in the early story of Ascalon 2, so very cool. And she was the daughter of the guy, Baradin, as I explained in the previous video, who gave up the throne. So in a weird way, she was the last in the true Ascalon line of kings, or she would have been a queen. But yeah, so kind of interesting. Plague Idol, moving swiftly on, an ancient relic of old Cantha from the time of its corruption by the Deceiver's dark magic. This is, of course, talking about Shiro Togachi as he petrified that continent, or large chunks of that continent. Plague Idol was an item we could get. It's interesting that we have Cantha references here. We've had a Nightfall reference as well. There's a lot of talk at the moment about how one of, I believe it was an artist, said that basically Cantha will never happen for Guild Wars 2 because NCSoft don't want them to do kind of a multicultural angle or whatever. They don't want to do like an Asian themed thing. I don't think I would have enough time to put all of my thoughts in just this one video on that topic. I really hope it's not true. I've heard a lot about how the NCSoft that publishes Guild Wars 2 is NCSoft West, right? And apparently they're very, very different from NCSoft that's actually, you know, operating over around Korea and stuff. So I'm not sure. It seems a bit out of place for NCSoft West to seem to force that angle, and I'd be really upset if that was true. But apparently this guy swears that the reason why the Great Collapse even exists and had to be written into the story was because early in development they said, no, you can never kind of do the Canthan district, you can never do that angle, and now we only have the Ossen Quarter, which would be a great shame. I do kind of only take it as rumours and speculation at the moment, until I see something really solid that confirms Cantha will never come back. And I suppose one thing in our favour if Cantha does come back is they are still doing plenty of references to that, so even if they can't show it to us, it looks like at least the devs aren't going to let us forget that it exists, and maybe even in some small way keep giving us lore about it, which would be a shame if this was the extent of it, but at least it is still on their mind. I don't know, maybe you guys can tell me what you think. I'm actually going to end this episode here because I ended up talking for like half an hour, so the next one will come out tomorrow. Thanks very much for watching another rambling video. You'll see part 2 tomorrow. And yeah, I mean, this Cantha thing is very kind of upsetting. If this is the first you've heard of it, then let me know. I know some people didn't really like Cantha that much and aren't too fussed, but I'll tell you what, looking back at it as I've been doing the scripts for the current lore summary stuff that's coming up, it had a lot of depth there, and there is really a lot of strong ties between Cantha and the Guild Wars 2 universe that they've set up now. Cantha was the Dragon Empire. There could be some really powerful, significant reasons for us to go back there, and it would be like, to me, it would be like the Guild Wars franchise has lost its left arm and its leg. But that's just kind of my opinion. So thanks guys for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, and yeah, have a good evening.